Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tamer Qarmout, and I'm the head of the MPA programs at the School of Economics, Administration, and Public Policy at the Doha Institute. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all to this prestigious academic conference organized under the high patronage of His Excellency Sheikh Khalid bin Khalifa bin Abdul Aziz Al Thani, the Prime Minister and Minister of Interior of the State of Qatar. On behalf of the organizing committee, I extend a warm welcome to all our attendees, starting with His Excellency Mr. Abdul Aziz bin Nasser bin Mubarak Al Khalifa, the President of the Civil Service and Government Development Bureau in Qatar, His Excellency Dr. Saleh bin Mohammed Al Nabit, the President of the Planning and Statistics Authority in Qatar, His Excellency Mr. Abdul Aziz bin Mohammed bin Ahmed Al Amadi, the President of Qatar's Audit Bureau, Dr. Azmi Bshara, Chair of the Board of Trustees of the Doha Institute, Dr. Abdul Wahab Al Afendi, Doha Institute President and Provost, Dr. Raed bin Shams, the President of the International Institute of Administrative Sciences, Dr. Hamid Ali, the Dean of the School of Economics, Administration and Public Policy, and Dr. Raed and Dr. Sufyan Sahrawi, Director General of IIAS, our generous sponsors, keynote speakers, and all our distinguished guests who have joined us in this conference. Welcome to Qatar, Ahlan wa Sahlan. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to stand here and represent a young country that has undergone a remarkable transformation, positioning itself as a leader in innovation, sustainability, and cultural preservation. I'm also honored to represent a young academic institute that has established itself as one of the leading academic institutes in Qatar and the Arab world, providing students with the world-class education, fostering cutting-edge research, and making great strides in building partnerships with leading academic and professional institutions around the world. Such partnerships have allowed the Institute to expand its reach and impact, promoting cooperation and collaboration on a global scale. And today's conference on the crucial theme of developmental states and professionalization of public administration and public policy is for sure a testimony for this. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to introduce the President and Provost of the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies, Dr. Abdul Wahab Al Afendi, to open this session. Before commencing his current post, Dr. Al Afendi was the former Dean of the School of Social Sciences and Humanities at the Doha Institute. He is also the founder, coordinator of the Democracy and Islam program at the University of Westminster. Dr. Al Afendi was a visiting fellow and professor at many universities, including Christian Michelsen Institute in Norway, Northwestern, Oxford, Cambridge, and the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization. The floor is yours, dear Dr. Abdul Wahab.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. ضيوفنا الكرام من السادة الوزراء ورؤساء الدواوين ورؤساء الجامعات والمراكز وكبار المسؤولين والأكاديميين، رئيس وأعضاء مجلس الأمناء من الحضور، الزميلات والزملاء، الطلاب والطالبات، التحيات المباركات الطيبات. في مستهل حديثنا هذا أود أن أتوقف لإرسال رسالة تضامن مع ضحايا الزلزال الكبير في تركيا وسوريا وأسرهم وأحبتهم، وعزاءنا في من قضى، ودعواتنا للمصابين بعاجل الشفاء، ولمن فقدوا الأحبة والمأوى بدعم عاجل. أما بعد، يسرنا في المعهد أن نستضيف اليوم المؤتمر الدولي للعلوم الإدارية الذي تنظمه كلية الاقتصاد والإدارة والسياسات العامة في المعهد بالمشاركة مع المعهد الدولي للعلوم الإدارية في بروكسل. ونأمل أن يساهم هذا الحدث الكبير نظرا لنوعية المشاركين فيه وعدد المشاركين فيه من العلماء والخبراء والمهنيين وكبار المسؤولين في هذا الحق في تقديم مساهمة نوعية في تعزيز آفاق التنمية في هذه الظروف العالمية القلقة والمقلقة. فهذا يتناغم مع رسالة معهدنا في تطوير العلوم الاجتماعية والإنسانيات وتعزيز المهنية ووضع كل ذلك في خدمة الإنسان. تزداد أهمية هذا الملتقى الذي يضم 300 مشارك من 70 دولة يمثلون أهم مناطق الجنوب والشمال في العالم، وتزداد هذه الأهمية بالنظر إلى محورية المهنية ودور التنمية في موضوع المؤتمر. موضوع المؤتمر كما تعلمون هو الدولة التنموية والمهنية في الإدارة. ذلك أن المهنية في الإدارة وأيضا في العلوم الإدارية هي من أهم ركائز العملية التنموية، لا يغني عنها المال ولا الموارد الأخرى. ويمكن أن نضرب مثلا لهذا بصناعة النقل الجوي في دول المنطقة في وقت سابق، وهي تمثل أحد أهم ركائز وأعمدة التنمية. فقد شهدت منطقتنا منذ الطفرة النفطية الأولى في السبعينات محاولات جادة لدعم صناعة النقل الجوي فيها. أذكر منها بسبب اطلاع غير مباشر على بعض مراحلها الأولية العراق والجزائر وليبيا. فقد سارعت هذه الدول في منتصف السبعينات في إرسال عدد كبير من الطيارين وغيرهم من المهنيين للتدرب في الغرب، وبادرت بشراء أحدث الطائرات واستثمرت في البنية التحتية المساعدة. ولكن شركات الطيران في تلك الدول لم تحقق ما هو مرغوب من سمعة عالمية في ذلك الوقت وربما حتى الآن. ولكن ما هي شركة الطيران التي حققت موقعا متقدما نسبيا في تلك الفترة؟ إنها، ويدهشكم من تسمعوا هذا، هي الخطوط الجوية الإثيوبية. لقد كانت حصلت هذه الخطوط على يعني مكانة عالمية كبيرة في نهاية السبعينات، بالرغم من أن إثيوبيا لم تكن تعاني فقط من الفقر وتخلف البنية التحتية، لدرجة أن مجلة نيوزويك نشرت تحليلا يستغرب هذا الوضع الذي نسب إلى أن الدولة كانت من العقلانية بحيث تركت إدارة الشركة المهنية للقائمين عليها. ورغم أن هذه الشركة تعرضت بعد التراجع في السنوات الأخيرة لأسباب عدة، إلا أنها لا تزال في معظم التصنيفات الدولية شركة الطيران الأولى في أفريقيا، يعني ليست الجزائر ولا ليبيا. Our contingency of patriotic South Africans shouldn't be distressed because South African Airlines is number 3 right after Morocco. والخطوط الجوية المصرية طبعا هي السادسة، وهذه معجزة أخرى. طبعا نحن في قطر هنا خارج هذا التصنيف، لأن قطر يعني تكاد تكون الأولى عالميا، قطر للطيران. هذا يقودنا إلى دور الدولة وأضعف الإيمان في حقها، وهو أن تسمح للمهنيين القادرين في مجالات الإدارة بأداء مهامهم وممارسة مهاراتهم بدون تعويق. إلا أن مسؤولية الدولة في إطار النموذج التنموي الذي هو محور هذا الحديث، محور هذا المؤتمر، يدعو إلى مسؤولية أكبر لا تقتصر على هذا الجانب السلبي، بل تتطلب القيادة في توجيه الموارد والتفكير والعمل الخلاق في ابتكار الحلول. وهذا بدوره لا بد أن يستند إلى مهنية إدارية رفيعة. فقد واجهت الدول النامية في العقود الأخيرة معضلة الخيار بين النيوليبرالية التي تحبذ استقالة الدولة والتحكمية القديمة التي تصر على تدخل الدولة في كل شيء. وحديثا شهدنا نموذجا ومعضلة أكبر هي ظهور نموذج الدولة النيوليبرالية التحكمية التي تخصص كل شيء ولكن لمؤيديها وتابعيها، مما يمكنها من تحكم أقل خضوع للشفافية والمساءلة عن طريق هؤلاء. والحل في النهاية في الوسطية التي تمثل شراكة المهنيين في القطاعات الثلاث، العام والخاص والمدني التطوعي. وهذا يعني أن يكون تدخل الدولة عند الضرورة وبحسب قواعد مهنية غير اعتباطية ولمصلحة الفئات الأقل حظاً. وإذا كانت النيوليبرالية تبرر عدم تدخلها بدعوى أن هذا أيضاً لمصلحة الفئات الأضعف، حيث ترى أن اقتصاد السوق قادر ليس فقط على تعظيم الثروة بل يخدم الفئات الأقل الأضعف عبر الانسياب الأدنى تريكل داون. ولكن يمكن أن يقال إن الأمر قد يكون بالعكس، وهو أن التوزيع المباشر لمن هم في أدنى السلم هو الذي يعظم الثروة بزيادة الطلب وإنعاش الاقتصاد. فهناك حدود لما يستطيع البليونيرات شراءه من قصور وسيارات فخمة وقطع فنية وغير ذلك، لأن اقتصاد العالم يعتمد على تداول السلع اليومية. أكرر الترحيب بكم جميعا في قطر المضيافة، والتي أصبحت منذ الاحتفال والمهرجان الدولي الأهم في تاريخ المنطقة وربما العالم وجهة الوجهات عالميا. ولا بد أنكم لاحظتم بعض بقايا التألق من ذلك المهرجان الذي كان متعة وامتيازا لكل من سعد بحضوره، ونحن منهم. نختم بتوجيه الشكر لمعالي الشيخ خالد بن خليفة بن عبد العزيز آل ثاني رئيس مجلس الوزراء وزير الداخلية برعايته الكريمة لهذا المؤتمر، وقد كان يعتزم أن يكون حاضرا بيننا المشاركة في الترحيب بكم وبضيوف قطر الكرام، ولكن ارتباطا طارئا حال دون ذلك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
شكرا دكتور عبد الوهاب. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to introduce Professor Hamid Ali, the Dean of the School of Economics, Administration, and Public Policy. Dr. Ali received his PhD from the University of Texas, Austin. He was a researcher at the U.S. Government Accountability Office, where he was a major contributor on various reports on U.S. congressional committees. He was also a tenured faculty at the American University in Cairo from 2008 to 2021. He taught at Texas State University and Southern Methodist University. The floor is yours, Dr. Hamid.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, we are convening today at this conference under the patronage of His Excellency Sheikh Khalid bin Khalifa bin Abdul Aziz Al Thani. He is deputized by His Excellency Dr. Saleh Muhammad bin Nabit, President of Planning and Taxing Authority, His Excellency Mr. Abdul Aziz bin Nasir bin Mubarak Al Khalifa, President of the Civil Service and the Government Development Bureau, His Excellency Abdul Aziz bin Muhammad bin Ahmed Al Ammadi, the President of the State Audit Bureau, the International Institute for Administrative Science, and the School of Economics, Administration, and Public Policy are hosting this international conference in Doha, following a successful organization of the World Cup. In the World Cup, it brought us all together across the globe to celebrating our diversity and our shared humanity. Qatar preparation for these events has demonstrated the power of the state intervention in guiding investment in infrastructure and promoting economic transformation in an era of digital transformation. Despite the challenges, the leadership in Qatar has shown that the government can design developmental strategies and propel the growth to a new heights. A developmental state that embodies the normative values and ambitions in creating an equal and prosperous society. Historically, East Asian countries have been considered exceptional in shaping their economies and their administrations, but the GCC countries have even shown more exceptional in that regard. They are utilizing different policy strategies and the oil revenues in a way that shaping the civil servants and the bureaucracy in the states. The MENA countries also have taken a leading role in promoting inclusive economic growth and social development by offering generous social contract for their citizens. MENA countries, it's true, there are so many fragile states, but the region is finding new ways to manage their natural resources, leading sustainable sustain new sources of economic growth in the era of the globalization. The conference theme is the developmental state and professionalization of the public administration and policy. This has attracted not only academics, but also the professionals from the government, think tanks, and NGOs to advance the agenda for the technocratization of policy and administration. The state should be transformed through professionalization, meritocratic bureaucracy, and efficient allocation of resources. For that regard, we are going to be discussing themes that extended from the evolution and the developmental states as a concept to the relation between the state capacity and the sustainable development, and the role of the state in promoting social welfare and reducing economic inequality. The challenges and the limitation of implementing developmental states in the 21st century is something that is really challenging, and our speakers are going to be speaking about it. And the conference panels will be focusing on broader topics, our country case studies related to the inputs and the instruments that are critical for the developmental state to achieve sustainable developmental goals. From the institutional perspective, there is a need for reforms and addressing governance issues, as well as improving the delivery of the social services. There are theoretical and empirical research that are going to be introduced in this conference. It will be overarching and mapping how and to what extent resources poor countries and poor government and that the stress of the resources can deliver services to their citizens. This conference is a golden opportunity for the scholars from the global north and the global south to convene in Qatar and to have a major policy dialogue on issues that are relevant to our society. And we hope to raise questions on alternative ways to have demonstrated the state and the role of the elites in a collective action centered around the developmental state as a sources for political legitimacy. And also let me take this chance to thank our colleagues at the Institute for Administrative Science, Dr. Raid bin Shams, Dr. Sufyan al-Sahrawi. They were so instrumental and very supportive in our membership to be on IIAS. They were very supportive, and also we are so grateful for our wonderful staff in DI and also our unique staff in the School of Economics and Administration and Public Policy for their exceptional performance, staying days and nights to organizing this conference. And also to my colleagues, Dr. Tamer Qarmout. He was the head of the technical committee. He was dedicating his entire summer on those meetings, and in the spirit of the team, he brought it all us together at the school, and our colleagues who worked so hard to make these events enjoyable to us. Also to the end, don't forget that Qatar is a tourist country. There is excursion that we are going on to the National Museum, to the Souk Waqif, and to the Museum of Islamic Arts, and the Arab Museum of the Modern Arts in Qatar. So we wish you a wonderful stay in Qatar, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hamid. Indeed, it was a 2 years long journey of planning, and it's great to be here now to see this success. It's my great pleasure now to introduce Dr. Raid bin Shams, the president of the IIAS. Dr. Raid is, he's the president of the IIAS for the second consecutive term and the Director General of the Bahrain Institute of Public Administration, BIPA. Since BIPA's establishment in 2006, Dr. bin Shams, together with the Institute's family, succeeded in making the Institute the main national provider for capacity building in the public and private sector. He is also the past president of the Middle East and North Africa Public Administration Research Network, MENAPAR. He led its establishment in 2014 as an international NGO registered in Belgium in 2018. Dr. bin Shams was awarded the Medal of Achievement of the first level by His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, King of the Kingdom of Bahrain, for his achievements in the public sector. He was also awarded the GCC Youth Medal for his contributions towards the development of the youth in Bahrain. Dr. bin Shams holds a master's degree from the University of Leeds and a PhD in management from the University of Bradford in the UK. The floor is yours, Dr. Raad. Hello, sir.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أصحاب المعالي، السعادة، الوزراء ورؤساء المؤسسات الحكومية, my academic practitioners, academics and para-academics, the mix between the two, all my colleagues, my sisters, brothers from around the world. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. 10 years since we were in this region. 2013, we were in Bahrain organizing the international conference of IIAS and IIAS, which is the sister organization. They were 10 years of world changing. We were not yet out of the global financial credit crunch crisis of 2008. We have then just experienced the Arab winter in 2011. Yet, crises kept flowing. We went through the oil crisis in 2014. Suddenly, we were amidst the COVID-19 crisis in 2020, the drought, which hindered the global supply chain in 2022, and with accumulated tensions through the years, we were experiencing a major war in the aging continent of Europe. In a nutshell, we are living the rise and falls of nations. This was led, or being led, by changing perspectives of globalization, democracy, populism, human rights, global roles of nations, governments, and definitely people. And yet, so many crises are still expected to rise. Unfortunately, crises are expected to be the norm in this volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. How are all of these geopolitical, economic, environmental crises changing our world? How is our field of administrative sciences changing? How does the way of serving our citizens in public administration developing? So many critical questions that we are trying to answer at IIAS throughout our conferences, study groups, more than 30 study groups, and gatherings as practitioners and academics during this conference, this year's and the years to come. Yet, the most common denominator was and should always be, as public servants, our citizens. That's our focus, preserving and maximizing public interest and how to equitably serve them for the good purpose of our life. How to serve them, though, is a little bit undermined. Actually, I think we need to save them from all of these crises. Therefore, what's going to happen after 10 years should not, by any means, be a matter of coincidence or just fate. We are here to design our future. We are here to plan our destiny by thinking together and working together. Yet, no need just to think normally. We need to think differently and definitely work differently. We need to think innovatively, outside the boxes and inside the boxes as well. We need to plan our contributions individually, institutionally, nations-wide, regionally, and globally. And this is where IIAS, with your contributions, works well. We definitely cannot do this separately. Let's be clear. The SDGs, for example, will not be realizable by 2030 without boosting our multilateral collaborations between our nations. And definitely the world needs to have solid financial contributions from the private sector as well, and from the rich to the poor. It's estimated that governments need to pump, during these difficult times, around $1.5 trillion to achieve the SDGs, yet we will still be short of $3.5 trillion to ensure the achievements of the SDGs, and leaving no one behind. This is until 2030. What about after that? We have already started discussing more than 20 new goals for the SDGs plus, such as reducing global inequality, advancing economic justice, financial inclusion, and definitely trying to end hunger altogether. One of the key things that really affects us is addressing the ethical governance. It is on the table to support democratic systems of governance and strengthening the rule of law within the boundaries of ethical leadership. We need to keep that in mind. We, the GCC, as developmental countries and other similar countries, have been integral to the success of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. The developmental countries are leading innovation to design and implement effective solutions to local problems and to share those lessons around the world. We are also improving our domestic policies to foster greater economic growth and social inclusion, strengthening climate resilience and protect the environment. In addition, we are scaling up our efforts to mobilize domestic resources, international aid, private investment, PPP, and to support the development and implementation of the SDGs. So let's gear up together. I think it's time. Developing, and underdeveloped countries, let's use the platform of IIAS around the world to discuss, plan, and evaluate our way forward to the SDGs. IIAS, with our sibling organizations, IIAS and IGPA, and working for years around towards this mega goal. And we are ready to work hand in hand with all of you, the thought leaders, along with our strategic partners, the UN, the OECD, the LAGPA, AGPA, MINAPAR. MINAPAR is our regional Arab network, as you've just heard with my colleague Tamer. NISPACI, ASPA, so many organizations around the world that we are already working together. So we need to shake hands further. And the rest of the world, definitely, as active change makers in our world. Let's make a difference for our citizens, for ourselves, and for our children, and for our future on Earth. And who knows, probably soon, our future on the moon or Mars. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Raed. I would like to invite Dr. Sufyan Sahrawi. Dr. Sahrawi is the Director General of the International Institute of Administrative Sciences. Since May 2017, he was the recipient of the, am I spelling it wrong? Right, so Jose Edgardo Campus Collaborative Leadership Award from the World Bank Group in 2017. He's the founding member of the MENAPAR and the founding president of the Arab Governance Institute. He's constantly invited to keynote at major international events. Dr. Sahrawi holds a PhD from the University of Pittsburgh and a master's from the University of Oxford. He has published 4 books and more than 50 research articles on in public and local governance and the governance of education and training. He consults regularly on public governance and higher education for major organizations like the African Development Bank, the European Union, the OECD Sigma Group, UNDP, the GIZ, governments and universities. The floor is yours, Dr. Sufyan. أهلا وسهلا.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Your Excellencies, honorable guests and participants, dear members of the academic and administrative staff of the Doha Institute of Graduate Studies, dear presidents and members of the Council of Administration of IIAS and the Board of Management of IIAS, dear guests and participants, I'm very happy to see this morning this large crowd of people, both from within Qatar and from outside, coming from all over the world. It's a great sign of the dynamism that this organization has reached. In 2013, we organized the joint conference of IIAS, Asia, and Bahrain, and it was a resounding success. 10 years later, we come back to the region to hold anew the annual conference of IIAS in Doha, Qatar, in partnership with the Doha Institute of Graduate Studies, and in particular the School of Economics and Public Administration and Policy. The program committee for the conference picked the theme of the developmental state, one that can provide inspiration for an alternative development model in many parts of the world. At the end of this conference, we hope to have a better insight on this model and to start to understand the real development dynamic beyond the rhetoric of artificial development in the region. We come to Qatar in the aftermath of one of the most successful football World Cup organizations ever. We also come to one of the intellectual hubs of the Arab world, where a new vision and authentic narrative about Arab reality has been in development since the establishment of the Doha Institute and the Arab Center under the leadership of Professor Azmi Bishara. We hope and we will do our best so that this visit is sustained through joint projects with our state member from Qatar, the Doha Institute of Graduate Studies, whether it is research, publications, accreditation, or else, IIAS offers a unique opportunity to members to harness a worldwide community of scholarship and administrative practice that is eager to share and collaborate. This IIAS conference is our main event for the year. Though not the largest, our European conference in Zagreb, Croatia later this year remains so. We will also be heading to Manila in the Philippines this summer for the annual conference of IIAS, our specialized entity focused on schools and institutes of administration. The IIAS conference is an opportunity for our Council of Administration to meet and decide the affairs of the organization. Many other governance meetings have already taken place over Sunday and Monday. IIAS General Assembly on Thursday will close this governance week. On Monday, we also held the PhD seminar. Today through Thursday will be the core program of the conference through a large and diverse offering of keynotes, panels, and parallel sessions. About 250 participants will stage a show of the greatest quality and exchange on key topics of public administration and public policy. As we head towards our 100th anniversary at IIAS, which we will celebrate in 2030, we remain cognizant of our European roots and our Brussels, Belgium birthplace. We are proud of that. We are also proud that we have evolved over the years to become more global and accommodate diversity in our membership, conference themes, and publications. We live what we preach, diversity and inclusiveness, within the largest remit of academic freedom. Coming to Qatar today and Manila later this year is part of our strategy to offer a platform to our members to showcase their public administration and public policy practices and engage in a global dialogue with partners from the north and the south, the east and the west. The context of this conference is the Arab region, a region that has witnessed major political and social upheavals in the last decade. While things seem to have quietened down with a halt in democratic transitions, many believe that further waves of the democratic tide are upcoming. It is precisely because of this dynamic that IIAS has to position itself in the region to accompany intellectually, that is, the unfolding process of political and administrative development. Last year we were in Rome, Italy. This year we are in Qatar. Next we will probably be in India in 2 years, either in Europe, farther east, or in Africa or Latin America. We keep looking for inspiration to better public administration and stay true to our mission. Finally, and although due thanks will be given at the end of the conference, I cannot hold back from expressing my heartfelt thanks to the local organizers led by Dean Hamid Ali with the competent assistance of Dr. Tamer Qarmoud. Muhammad Al-Attar and his team are great hosts, and we thank them for it. Thank you all for your support, and welcome to the annual conference of IIAS.
Thank you, Dr. Sufyan. I would like to invite Dr. Paul Joyce. Dr. Joyce is the Publications Director of the International Institute for Administrative Sciences. He is also an associate at the Institute of Local Government Studies at the University of Birmingham and a visiting professor in public management at Leeds Beckett University. He has a PhD from the London School of Economics and Political Science. His most recent book is Strategic Management and Governance, Strategy Execution Around the World, published in 2022. Dr. Joyce also is the general rapporteur for this conference. The floor is yours, Dr. Joyce. Welcome.
Yeah, I do. So someone here? Sorry for that. I just want to get a slideshow put up. What I'd like to do now is just change the mood slightly. You've had some very serious, very insightful presentations, very important presentations. But I want to set us up now for the work this week. Sofyan mentioned dialogue, and that's a very important word for us, because we see our conferences as times and places where research is presented, empirical research, ideas are presented, but importantly, there is much dialogue. And it's through the dialogue and discussion we learn from each other and through each other. It doesn't matter, it's okay, it's okay. So what I would urge you to do is, when we get into our work, that we adopt a more informal style, because the dialogue really does matter. That's where we learn from each other. I just want to make 4 points. Very often our concepts that we use take the sting, the pain out of events. It's been mentioned by Raid, some of the things that have happened over the last 10 years. And really, it's important to think concretely about them, because sometimes we say, we live in a turbulent world. It sounds so nice, doesn't it? Turbulent. It's just a little bit of turbulence. We're at, a crisis. It's just a bit of crisis. But go back and think through all those things that have happened. The economic crises, the environmental ones that are increasing in intensity and frequency, and even the last few days there's been news about the way that sometimes nature challenges us. But I want to talk about not just where we are in time as we look forward to 2030, but also think about where we are in terms of the movement towards the Sustainable Development Goals. What I think will come out in these next few days, these next couple of days, is diversity of experience. When we look at some of the key things that we are all trying to do in line with the 2030 agenda, things that were mentioned already by Raid, the poverty, hunger, getting rid of hunger. When we think about some of those goals and objectives we've got, we can see that in some countries they're moving forward on things like poverty and the standard of living. But we can see some countries slipping back. When we look at the other key axis, of the sustainable development, which is around the natural environment, again we can see progress occurring. There are some countries that are reducing carbon dioxide emissions. And one of the most interesting things to me personally about being here in this area is that some of the countries that are making progress on cutting carbon dioxide emissions would be United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. And these countries are also improving the Human Development Index. They're improving on education, health, and standard of living. So we've got some examples in that diversity of experience where progress is being made on both fronts. We've got examples from Northern Europe where they've made great progress on reducing carbon dioxide emissions, standing still on the Human Development Index. So there's so much variety. Why? Why is it some countries are moving forward on both fronts? Some are moving forward on one front but not another? And why in some cases as well, we're seeing countries slip back? So, you've heard all of them have talked before me about the developmental state. We're interested in three things. And I want to spell out the two things that they've not stressed. We are interested in governance and the developmental state, how that governance is helping to steer societies towards the 2030 agenda's delivery. Not fast enough, but it is. But secondly, we're interested in policy making. And that policy is now having to become more agile. I'm looking at Tamer. We've talked about this a lot. So we're interested today and tomorrow and the day after in how is policy making dealing with the complexity. One complexity is how do you do both? Develop on the human, on the human front, and develop on the environment. Is it sometimes that the two are in contradiction or in opposition? How do we deal with that complexity in our policy making? And then the third key part of all this is the civil service, the public administrators, who are going to be needed to deliver the governance that we need for sustainable development, are going to be needed to deliver the agile policy making, to deal with the complexities in our environment. So a very important theme in this conference, the third theme, is the development of our civil servants, the professionalization. And that word is very rich. It means many different things. What I would like you to do, leave here and go and have a coffee break now, but with questions in your mind. I'd like you to go into this set of discussions, conversations, dialogues with questions. I've come up with, I haven't really, I've borrowed this from a friend of mine. What I'd like you to do is listen to each other, think about what each other is saying, and then debate and explore and learn with and through each other. Anyway, that's enough for us. Time for coffee or tea or whatever.
Actually, time for a group photo first. I would like to invite all our guest keynote guest speakers, our honorable ministers, Dr. Azmi, Dr. Abdul Wahab, for a group photo, please, and then we'll take a 15 minutes break, and then we'll start with the first plenary session. Thank you.